With over 8 million broadcasts, and over 600 million viewers, and over 600 million viewers, is the number one tool to increase your live Restream enables you to create, analyze,
Your money, your taxes, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Thursday, July 11th. We are here live. It is time for a free-for-all. Let's see if we got some calls coming in. I've got some stuff today. It's almost all politics. So if we have calls, I'll go to the calls. Looks like they might be coming in. Pick up the phone and join us, 855-950-3835. Hit that call now button on your app, and we will get to it. We've only got an hour today, so jump in quickly. After that, I'll be followed by the Beckett's with Rolling Toe. And later on today, I've got a coaching call as well. So one of the things I've been thinking about doing, and I was going to talk about it maybe on the open today, but we've got some calls coming in. There's a lot going on in politics right now, a lot going on in many of the areas that I've been talking about for several years, whether it's more and more coming out about the vaccine, big food. I read an article this morning that I need to do some research on. I never believe anything anymore unless I can verify it. And I spend a lot of time trying to verify things. This one, though, is I think, really big. For years I've been talking about the opioid crisis, how it got started, how bad it became. I've talked about Purdue Pharma and their role in all of this. But I read something this morning that really makes this beyond criminal if it's true. And I try to be skeptical, but I'm going to verify whether this is true or not. I don't remember which. I just read it not long before coming on the air, so I haven't had time to verify much of anything. The claim by this person is that, and I don't even remember which big pharma company it was, Pfizer, Moderna, one of them. The claim is that they filed a patent for an opioid-like drug that had that was non-addictive. That is like the holy grail in pain management if they could ever do that. Pain is really difficult. I get that. We've been dealing with it for a very, very long time without using opioids for everything. We went way overboard on opioid use because, and this is what we've talked about for years, Purdue was the one that kind of pushed the idea that opioids were not addictive when they are horribly addictive. And that is the biggest problem with them. They are very effective for pain, but they are very addictive. You build tolerances for them quickly, very difficult to get off of with horrendous side effects when you try to stop. The holy grail has always been, can we find a way to block pain that's non-addictive? And there really aren't any drugs on the market that do it. Well, the claim is that this company patented one so that nobody else would be able to sell it, and they don't sell it. If that's true, people need to go to prison over that. I'll have to do some digging and figure that out. Calls are really starting to pile up, so I had a whole big thing I was going to put together. It was a lot of politics and a lot of what we have been told for years have been conspiracy theories, and how so many of them now are being absolutely proven to be false, whether it's cholesterol or food, or so much of it is finally coming to light. And I have to say, a lot of it is coming to light because of X or Twitter and Elon Musk allowing these things to be talked about and posted without censoring and deleting people. And we're seeing more and more of it. There are a couple big names going after big food directly. We had Casey Means on the show a couple weeks ago, and her brother, Callie, his whole mission is to go after big food. And he is kind of a big food insider. He worked in that industry for a lot of years. He knows how it works. He's going after him pretty hard. So is Joe Rogan. And there is a group already formed with really big money behind it that is trying to shut up Joe Rogan about this. It's interesting to watch what happens. You know, if we have X and like myself, just create your own space, create your own way of communicating, which Joe Rogan certainly has, it's getting harder and harder to shut people up. But they're certainly trying. So I think I'm just going to get to the phone calls because we don't have a lot of time today. I may even do a special episode on this one. We'll see. Let's get started today in Ontario. Brett, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Kevin.
What's on your mind today?
Well, I got two things. First one was from a show you made, a statement you made quite a few shows ago. I forget when exactly. You mentioned there's no such thing as American food.
Kind of. I might have said that.
I wanted to push back. Yeah. I wanted to push back on that a tiny little bit. There is such a thing as American food. I'll go down a little list I made. Captain Crunch, Pop-Tart, Twinkies.
Hey, Brett, I hate to break it to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still right.
Mm-hmm.
You know why?
Go ahead.
That's not food.
Okay, yeah, you got it there.
People might put it in their mouth.
Food, it's toxic waste.
Exactly. People might put it in their mouth and swallow it and believe that it's food, but it's really not.
Mm-hmm. You know, Kevin, there was a little competition at me and a friend when we were at a truck stop.
Let's talk about something else, too. Not only do we not really have American food, nothing, the way you know of like French food or German food, or I mean, a lot of countries have very distinct food. We don't really have, the most distinct thing I could say is maybe barbecue, which is really good. I love barbecue. It's one of my smoking meats, that kind of thing. We could maybe claim that's more American. But here's the other problem. Not only do we have any real good American food, we bastardize all the other food. I mean, think about this. Yeah. What the hell is American cheese? It's not food.
Fake cheese?
Exactly.
Fake cheese?
So we have one cheese named after, it's American cheese. Look at it. It looks like plastic. It probably is. Look what we did to bread. Bread everywhere else around the world, and I'm not promoting bread. We shouldn't be eating it at all. But if we are going to eat it, you wouldn't want to eat the Wonder Bread we created here in this country, white and bland, and the foods we have created that are associated with us are awful. We take everything and we homogenize it. We make it so bland and mild, and it's just awful what we've done to food.
Yep, it is. Real quick, Kevin. Me and a friend at a competition at a truck stop, and we were waiting for showers. We had a competition to see who could find the most revolting processed food in the place. He won, but I came this even beer. Say what you will about alcohol. I didn't know that Miller was putting corn syrup in their beer.
Oh, I didn't know that either. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I wish I was.
Why? It has to be cost. No, it has to be cost. Well, I don't think we have to think too hard about it. It probably allows them to brew beer cheaper. That seems to be the entire goal of the American food system is make it as cheap as you can, and yet it's still outrageously expensive to go to the grocery store.
Oh, absolutely. Ground beef up here in Ontario is up to, I mean, not ground beef. Angus steaks are up to $47 a pound here in Ontario.
That is just insane. But here's the thing. At that point, I have to believe you could do so much better to go find a local farmer and try to buy your meat direct.
Absolutely. It's getting to that point.
Yeah. It's and we talk about it a lot. Not only is the food supply just horrible and that's bad enough, but the really bad part is what it's doing to people's health and how that affects us across the board. Lower productivity, we could just go on and on and on about how bad the food supply has become and how much it's really hurting us.
Absolutely. You are what you eat. It's more true than ever, I think.
When we look around, and this was going to be kind of a part of my open today, or it's this idea I want to try to work on and make some sense out of, but even think about politics today. 61 laps around the sun. I've been following politics for quite a while. I've never seen anything like what we're facing now. We are so divided all we ever talk about anymore are the extremes in both directions, and they're really extreme. I mean, you look at some of the stuff we're talking about now, what's going on. I would bring it back to the food supply. People's brains are being horribly affected by this, and you can see it in behaviors. You can see it in the trends. What happened to men not knowing they're men anymore? I mean, really, this is a real problem.
I was going to say, Kevin, you've seen my country's prime minister?
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. This is not normal. Human beings are I hate to say this, but I'm starting not to recognize people as human beings. It's getting so bad.
Oh, yeah. Truer words have never been spoken, unfortunately, in that department. And unfortunately, the last, let's say, 70-odd years of heavily processing food to the point that it's no longer really food anymore has certainly done a nice number on that.
Yeah. And, it's become so common. I won't use the word normal. It's not normal. It's completely abnormal. But it's become so common that I talked about this the other day. I was trying to deal with somebody who is kind of an influencer in trucking around fitness. And their fitness advice is excellent. But they actually made the statement to me, because I called them out on a product, that it was absolute total garbage. It was something that isn't necessary, a protein drink. What the hell do you need a protein drink for? Eat a steak, eat an egg. Protein is one of the easiest macros to get, and we should have no lack of protein in our diet, and we shouldn't be trying to get protein from some over-processed garbage. But when I said it, it was like, well, you know what? If they work out, they'll be fine, and, you're never going to get truck drivers not to eat processed food. Well, bullshit. I've gotten lots of truck drivers to stop eating processed food. We've been very successful at it. Why do we have this attitude that people are just going to eat this, so just don't worry about it?
I don't have any words for why he would think that way. I guess he thinks of, the quote-unquote average driver now. And unfortunately, the average image that people have in their heads of a driver is not a good one.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's kind of what I'm trying to say is that it's become so common that we now look around and say, well, no, this is just the way it is. Well, no, it's not. I've been around, I've been living long enough to, just in my lifetime, this has changed dramatically, and it's all for the worse. I was watching TV last night, just kind of paying attention. In a 1 hour TV show, nine drug commercials in a 1 hour TV show. Four of the drugs I had never even heard of before, and I watch this stuff all the time.
I'm not surprised. I'm not going to lie. Unfortunately, the people in charge of Pfizer and Moderna do have to make their house and car payments somehow. Of course, seems they want to do it at the expense of your health.
That's exactly right. And you know what? I don't begrudge anybody making a living. I'm a capitalist. But come on, you can't make a living killing other people.
Nope. You shouldn't. But
you shouldn't. You're right.
Unfortunately, some people have no conscience.
That's, I guess, the hardest part for me. Really, I tend to believe that people are good at heart, that most people wouldn't do this if they understood what they're doing. But you can't excuse them anymore. I mean, there's no way to look at this and say you don't understand what's happening. It's why I was saying yesterday, for the many years now, I've given doctors the benefit of the doubt. It's not their fault. It's a broken system. But at some point, it becomes so painfully obvious that if these doctors are willing to work in that broken system and not understand how broken it is and not push back, then they have a lot of accountability now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the same up here. And in fact, Kevin, I would even argue that the quote unquote government death care up here in Canada is probably worse, because I didn't even know this for the longest time. Here in Ontario, you can't even really open a lot of private health anything. Like,
right.
As far as I know, you can't even open a private hospital.
Well, Brett,
it's
I completely agree with you, and it's why I've fought so hard for about 30 years now to try to keep the government from encroaching even more on our healthcare system. They're way too involved here in the U.S., but when I look at Canada, I just keep hoping we don't end up like that.
Mm-hmm. Lesson in what not to do.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, I think my country's really turned into that the last maybe decade or so.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. That and the other thing I called in about as well too a little early, was going to call in about too. Good news and bad news. I'm a company driver, and our company business is actually picking up slightly. The problem is I don't like how he got to pick the business up. We had 4 brokers leased onto us. 3 of them have been laid off.
Ooh.
Yeah. And the one guy who's left, he doesn't really leave city limits much. Yeah. I don't like how he did it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a little grateful for work, but I don't like seeing people laid off like that.
You know, I don't either, and I don't know enough about the situation, but I could maybe speculate, and maybe it's not a bad thing. One of the things you have to manage when you start to build a fleet, whether you're using drivers or owner-operators, and this is a difficult business to manage this in. Freight is volatile. We've been through some really crazy couple of years right now. And I was saying, if you listen to the show, I was saying this back in 2020 when this all started. In order to get drivers, they had to start paying more. And they did. And I was saying, look, I love the fact that drivers are getting paid more, but this is math. And I'm looking at the math and I see a problem coming. You have to pay more to get drivers because there's so much freight. But at some point, these rates are going back down. This is an artificial inflation of rates, and these rates are going back down, and you can't ever take a raise away from somebody. The minute you try to take a raise back, And no matter how well you could justify it, people get pissed off and they'll leave. And I kept saying these fleets are in a really tough position. They have to raise wages or don't grow. And maybe that might have been a better answer. But once you raise wages, you're kind of screwed. And I've looked at the math for most fleets. It's not sustainable at these rates. The margins in trucking are really small. The number one cost are wages. You raise wages and margins disappear fast, and then rates go down. There's no margin left at all for a lot of these companies. Now, the other thing you have to be careful of, especially if you're using owner-operators, you have to make sure you do have enough work for them. There are just basic fixed costs I have to overcome. It doesn't matter if you pay me $6 a mile. If you don't give me enough miles, I'm going to fail. So as a fleet, you've got to manage that volume. And in times like this, it means you've got to get rid of people.
Yeah. In fact, the driver who's above me, it's a small fleet. There's only 8 of us.
Right.
The driver who's above me, they actually said, we're not going to drop your pay, but the raise that's due to you, because he's been here a year, we can't afford to give it to you right now.
Correct.
There's so much, so great for us.
And we just have to understand that just is the reality of where we are right now. Everybody is feeling this. We're feeling it. I've talked about it. I was talking about it yesterday. I don't like to talk people out of buying supplements. I do, because if they're not necessary, don't take them, don't spend the money. But I also look at our bottom line and go, okay, if I'm not promoting and selling supplements, where's our revenue coming from? Because our revenue's way down, because the economy's down, and drivers are hurting, and we've lost people in the industry. We've lost people that were probably our customers. And we're feeling it. So, we're looking around and just like everybody else in this economy, revenue is down and expenses are up.
Absolutely. And funny thing is, though, too, Kevin, I overheard our guy who owns the company. He's also talking about pre-buying newer trucks as well, too, which I'm not exactly complaining about. If I told you about the tractor I'm driving now, you'd hate everything about it. So I'm not complaining about getting something newer, but at the same time, it just seems like a weird time to be talking about pre-buying new equipment as well.
Well, and I'll explain that from the business owner side of things, because we've been through this now 1, 2, 3. This will be our 4th time. The first time no, I can't say that, because I got caught in that pre-buy craze the very first time. When we knew EGR was coming, I did just like everybody else. Oh boy, I probably should buy another new truck before this happens. I was not in the market for a new truck at the time, but I ordered one. You want to stay ahead of some of these things when you can. And that pre-buy was so bad. I've talked about this many times. I did not get the truck I ordered. The truck I ended up with was the worst truck I have ever owned, because they changed my entire order because fleet orders ahead of me, because fleets were pre-buying. That was the very first round of emissions. We went through it again in 08, then we went through it in 10. We're going to go through it again now. Nobody wants the problems of these new emissions. When they bring out a new level, there are always problems to work through, and they're expensive problems, and everybody's kind of panicked about that right now. So it's almost the lesser of two evils. You don't really want to go buy a truck right now, but if you need one within the first 24 months after that new emission standard goes in, you don't want one of those trucks. A lot of people just want to avoid that. So my guess is that's the whole reason we're calling it a pre-buy. The government, again, is forcing us to make a decision. Either wait and end up with one of these new trucks that we don't even know anything about yet. I don't know how they're meeting this next round of emissions. So a lot of times it's less risky to go buy a truck ahead of time, even though you really don't want to. But sometimes you look at it and go, well, I still think it's less risky than waiting and ending up with one of these other trucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Or you could do what he did with mine. He just deleted the emissions off of it.
Well, you can't. I would tell him that is a horrible idea. We've seen this. We've seen trucks that end up worse. They're still in the shop all the time. They're not running right. Their fuel economy is horrible. And now you have all the risk of, you've got to be careful what shop that truck ends up in. Mm-hmm. The EPA, well, you're in Canada. I don't know what you've got going on up there. The EPA here is cracking down on that stuff finally.
Actually, we had one of our guys with a deleted truck get caught up here in the Toronto area. Up here, it's the Ministry of the Environment. Basically, they told them, take it back to your terminal, and the VIN got flagged. They pulled the plates off. They wouldn't give it back until it was verified the truck had been repaired. $30,000 later.
I was just going to say that repair is $20,000 to $30,000 depending on how they deleted it. Yeah. Yep. Plus you paid to delete it.
Yeah, so we ended up paying $45,000 for it in the end.
So I was just going to say, I bet you paid $10,000 or so to have it deleted, then another $30,000 to fix it again. You could have bought a truck.
Yep.
It is a horrible expense that you should never, ever incur. $45,000 out the window, gone. Mm-hmm. But that's the kind of stuff we're dealing with right now. Mm-hmm. It's a tough business right now.
No. Yep, not the best way to do business either.
It's not.
So, yep. Well, anyway, Kevin, I know you're limited for time, so I'll let you get to someone else.
All right. Thanks for the call. Good stuff. Let's go to North Carolina. Cole, welcome.
Hi, Kevin. Just finally figured out how to get into your coaching program.
Oh, good.
So I submitted a question for today, but I was typing up the question, and it kind of got me thinking. So I was kind of thinking about, we've been talking a little bit on the show, not on coaching yet, but about bringing on drivers and trying to get things situated so we can be profitable doing that.
Right.
And just kind of wanted to talk about, if we do bring on drivers, I'll need to start picking trucks, picking up some more trucks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of, I'm a little bit against the grain on this show on the trucks I like, but they seem to work well for me. So,
well, then that's what you should use. Really, if somebody has experience with a certain brand, truck, engine, all that stuff, and it's working for you, well, then let's work with that. When people come to me and they just want me to help them pick the best truck, well, then I certainly have my preferences, but I can work with any truck. I mean, we can make money with any truck. The difference between the very best truck today on fuel mileage and what we can do with almost any truck is not all that different anymore. When we were back in where the average truck was getting 5.5 miles to the gallon, and it was fairly easy to get 7.5. That was such a huge difference, and the savings was incredible. We're not.
Right.
It's not like that anymore. I mean, yeah, we might have Joel and Henry and some guys out there pushing 11, which sounds incredible. But if you're already at 9, which isn't that unusual these days, the difference between 9 and 11 is not all that big. There really is a difference.
Can I push back a little bit on something that you said
Sure.
on the second, which was the power hour before the 4th, and you just said it again? No one's getting 11, Kevin. Purple Haze 30-day is 10.4, 60-day is 10.8, 90-day is 10.6, and lifetime is 10.5. That's not 11.
No, but we've had some, and that's lifetime. So we've got a lot of things in there.
Fuel ups over 11, correct?
Well, and we were starting to see some trends.
I guess what I'm getting at is, like, when you made that comment, you weren't trying to be super precise. You just
No,
said,
I wasn't.
Joel has one truck, one truck in the 11s and one truck in the 10s, and that's not true. I know that statement was not meant to be super precise, but there is not anybody that's getting 11. I mean, the best here is at 10.5 lifetime.
If I remember right, and I don't know if I was talking about this at the time, but one of the things that, and maybe it's going through my head and I don't always vocalize it well, both of those trucks are pulling random trailers. We have no optimized trailers here. So when I look at that and I know an optimized trailer adds over a mile per gallon. So we really are there in my mind. If we really said, hey, look, we're going to squeeze everything we can out of these trucks that are in the 10 range, and we start optimizing trailers, we really are in the 11 range. It's no longer out of the question.
If we take Henry's results at 10.3 at 70, he does have an optimized trailer, but if we slow him down to 55,
correct,
he is in the 11.5 range.
And that's probably what, that's what I'm thinking in my mind. It wasn't necessarily that we have a truck showing a 30-day average of over 11 yet, but we were starting to get pretty close to it.
But I mean, what you had said was Joel has two trucks, one's in the 11s, one's in the 10s, but one's in the 10s and one's in the 9s, because his Blueberry's running at 9.3, and his lifetime's 9.1 on that one. Now that one's still being broke in, so that will come up a little bit, but 9.3 for the 6x4 is not 10. But again, he's pulling random trailers, and he said he has no arrow on those trailers. Apparently, ArcBest doesn't put any arrow on them. So I'm just trying to look at numbers that are equal, because that's what I'm trying to benchmark my results at, right?
So, and one of the questions then would be, can you optimize your trailer? In your operation, would it be possible to optimize your trailer? Because if it is, we can add a mile to the gallon on all the numbers.
Right. Well, and I've thought about that. And that's something that I'd like to go over in the coaching. I'm not sure if it's going to make any sense to optimize. I'm already at 10. My 9,000 mile average since I've been vanning is 10.07.
Excellent.
With no skirts. So now I do have a little bit of optimization. That trailer, when I rented it, I'm renting it from my brother-in-law, who's my mechanic. So he had some old recaps on it, and we didn't want to run those. So I took one of my trailers that was parked, one of my flatbeds, and took the tires off of it.
Okay.
So it's got some good wide base singles on the trailer.
Good.
Because we wanted to run my tires, so he didn't have to buy new tires for a test.
Right.
So we do have some optimization going on with that trailer, but no skirt. So, I've identified where we can probably gain 10% on the trailer, which would be a mile per gallon.
Mm-hmm.
And then I still have a few things to do to the tractor, but once we're at 10, I think the ROI doesn't really come back that much.
Sometimes it doesn't.
Choose to optimize it.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't. And it's just like every other question. It's a math problem. What's it going to cost to optimize it? At today's fuel price, what are the savings? Because I never try to predict future fuel prices, because nobody knows what's going to happen with fuel. It could go to $6 a gallon. It could go to $2 a gallon. It's done it many, many times in both directions. So there's your biggest risk. So the best we can do is say, okay, what's it going to cost us to optimize it? Where's the break even? How many miles, how many months, however we want to calculate it, and then what do we save after that? Here's the one thing we do want to think about with the trailer. Honestly, there's no reason not to keep a trailer for 20 years. Really, I mean, a van trailer is pretty easy to maintain. You can keep these things for a long time. So sometimes you look at it and go, oh man, it's going to take me almost 2 years to just break even on this. And on a tractor, if something takes 2 years to break even, I'm not all that excited about doing it. There's some things that could go wrong that I'll just never get my money back. If a trailer has a break even of 2 years, I probably will do it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how quickly you want to trade off trailers, I agree with you. There's not a whole lot of improvements between the years in trailers.
Oh,
Disc brakes or drums, that's about it, right?
Really, that is about, and anything else that's an improvement, tires, aerodynamics, that's all add-on. I mean, so that can be done to any trailer.
Only one thing would be the lift axle. Henry kind of mentioned it, and I've spec'd a flatbed with a lift axle, and it's nice to get them from the factory that way. That way they're tied into the ABS system.
True. The aftermarket, and I know the ABS can be an issue, but putting a lift axle on a trailer is pretty darn cheap.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Depending on some trailers, do they normally have ABS sensors on all 4 positions or only 2?
You know what? I don't know. ABS is one of those things that I kind of avoid.
I know on my flatbed it's got it on all 4.
Does
I'm
it?
not sure
Okay.
if that's because I spec'd the
lift
axle. But anyway, the thought I had is kind of what I wrote up in the.
I would think, just off the top of my head, now that I put a little thought in that, I would think you would have to have a sensor on every wheel. If you don't, those wheels are going to lock up.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Except for the tractors only have the sensors on one axle on the drives.
That shows you how little I know about ABS.
But, ABS is confusing. I hate ABS.
Yeah, me too.
I like the old 96 speed I had because it didn't have any.
Well, just so you know, my coach, I've had it now for not 8 years, maybe. I think maybe I got it in 16 or so.
Mm-hmm.
When I bought it, the ABS light was on. The ABS light is still on.
Mm-hmm.
I've made no attempt when I bought it, the place I bought it from is really the factory. Country Coach is out of business, but a couple of the executives bought the building and they do a whole resale thing there. They have all the old technicians and cabinet. I mean, it's an awesome setup. They're about the only people I let work on my coach other than myself. But when I got it and I said, hey, the ABS light's on. He said, it's not negotiable. He said, we don't even attempt. He said, every time we try to work with ABS, we can't do it here. We have to send it out to somebody else. It's always a fiasco. He said, if you don't like it, put a piece of tape over it. And so I just decided he's probably right. I'm not messing with it either. The brakes work fine. I don't have to worry about, DOT on this. So I'm not even attempting to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, real quick, what I have been thinking over these last few weeks of running the van is I might be interested in just selling both my flatbeds, maybe even my glider as well, and building up some capital to start buying newer model trucks, like my 2020 I'm in now,
mm-hmm.
and just switching completely over to van. Do you think that would be a dumb decision? It seems dumb to me, but the more I look at the numbers, it makes sense because I'm running about $1.85 a mile, all miles with the van. I was running about $1.98 a mile with the flatbed. You saw 206, but that was inaccurate because of the way Profit Gauges calculates. So I'm just wondering if I don't know.
Let's go back to something you just said. So Profit Gauges calculates by all miles recorded, all revenue coming in.
Mm-hmm.
How did we get an incorrect reading?
Well, because of the way the date break is.
Oh, okay.
Depending on how your month goes.
Well,
it won't exactly always be even.
Then let me correct what you just said.
Like you'll have one invoice.
It's not an incorrect reading.
Yeah, it won't be. Yeah, what did I say? It's not correct completely off of just because when you end the month, you might be in the middle of an invoice. You got to put the invoice on one month or the other.
Correct. We've always got that. We would complicate and confuse the hell out of everybody if we tried to match the revenue made during those.
Tried.
It's almost impossible.
And I've tried to do that by by like increasing my mile. But then what was it that happens? Something else happens then.
This is why,
because your fuel, the fuel is attached.
correct. And if you just bought fuel on the last day of the month, that fuel is going to get burned in the next month. I get that. That is an accounting problem across the world. You can't change that in accounting. And when you try, you will make an absolute mess out of it and confuse everybody. This is why we talk about how important it is to do your accounting all the time, every month, and look at it every month, and then look at a quarter, and then look at 6 months, and then look at a year, and compare this year to last year. And, you know, it's a lot of people wonder when we bring people on with really killer numbers, and people doubt that it's even possible. Well, it is, but it takes time. I can't get somebody to that level in 6 months. It's just not going to happen. These things take time, and you get better and better at it over time. If somebody comes to me and we do their accounting right now one time, well, sure, that's way better than not having any accounting, but it doesn't give me all the answers. I need to see history. I need to see patterns. We need to smooth out some of those errors that occur in accounting because of all these things we just pointed out.
Right, and it's not really an error, like you say.
That's what I mean. It's not an error.
The profit gauges.
It's accurate math, but the math doesn't always match the time frame because we have
data input.
Yeah, we have to have a cutoff somewhere. We have to say, okay, we're putting in all the numbers we have right now. Well, we just pulled a load, but we haven't gotten paid for it yet. Well, we can't put it in. This is also, and believe me, I tried for years to talk more about this and get people to understand it. And when I open a show going over numbers, I get crickets. I get no phone calls. There are two ways to do accounting. There's a cash basis accounting and accrual basis accounting. And we try as hard as we can to stay on cash basis because it's much easier. It's easier to understand. Accrual basis is more accurate, though. But it's more complicated.
Well, one thing I do love about the profit gauges is it does give us that breakup per the month, because I keep track of everything in a spreadsheet for the accrual side, like what's my fuel economy, what's my cost per mile, that sort of thing. But what I love about fuel gauges is you can put in the monthly expenses, which have to be broken on a month. So that's why you get that kind of that uneven number. When I said, when you looked at May, I was showing 206 for the flatbed. That hitch was a month and a half long, and during that month and a half long, I actually got like $1.98.
Got it. And that makes total sense.
Because of the break,
right?
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I mean, when you look at the numbers, it doesn't seem like flatbed is all that much higher, because flatbed always has much higher, at least the way I was running it, had much higher deadhead, because
so a couple
we
things
don't take those short loads.
And that's why profit gauges is set up to track every single mile you put on the truck, not loaded miles, which I see a lot of people do, because then it makes their rate look better. And you know, to them, it's all about ego. But you need to track every single mile, especially when you're doing what you're doing right now, comparing, should I make this change or not? And we want really accurate numbers. There's a couple things you should be taking into account. You're already taking into account deadhead miles. Here's something else we need to look at. What are the differences in time between these two operations? How are your typically, and I'm just going to generalize here, typically in flatbed, the length of haul is shorter. The average length of haul is shorter. We don't tend to move a lot of these flatbed products as far in general as we do van freight. Anytime you shorten the length of haul, the rate has to go up, because there's always some time loading and unloading. And the more time there is loading and unloading, the more that differential has to be. And then we have to start looking at days. Okay, how much revenue was I able to generate in 5 days or 10 days or 15 days? And the longer we can look at it, the more accurate it starts becoming. So yes, I'm getting
I'm glad you mentioned that. Actually,
go ahead.
That's something that is really important to me that I think a lot of owner-operators don't think about is they get overly obsessed with this dollar per mile.
Correct.
Number. That to me almost is meaningless. The dollar per day is more important. So right now, this hitch is 20 days long. I'm averaging $853 a day.
Excellent. That's
after fuel and factoring, I'm averaging $665 per day.
So when I designed profit gauges, we looked at tracking days like that. And it started to get complicated, and I ran some beta testing on it, and it was confusing people. You get this, you're writing spreadsheets yourself to track this. You're in the 1%. Seriously, that's out of the norm. And so one of the things we did, it isn't perfect, but it's if you notice on the business report, we're tracking the number 4 different ways. We give you the raw number itself. Here's the dollars you spent on fuel. We give it to you per mile. Here's what it cost you per mile for fuel. We give it to you as a percentage of revenue. That kind of helps figure out the days and the time because it correlates your expenses to your revenue, not just a pure expense. What percentage of my revenue is going towards this expense? It's not quite as accurate as doing it by the day, but it's a lot less confusing. And then in the last column, we give you an average. So we really do get in one report on one page, we give you 4 different ways to look at that number.
Yeah, I don't think that that any of that really should be in we shouldn't be doing that in the accounting. The way you built the accounting is perfect. Like there's enough in there to understand your numbers, and there's not so much in there that's going to confuse everybody. So it's done correctly. If you want to track more stuff, then you can just write down how many days you've been out and write down how much money you've made and divide the two. It's pretty simple. You know what I mean?
It is. You're right. So it seems like well, if it's that simple, why can't you just build it into the software? I've tried. It's even simple to put it in the software. I see your point. The tough part is it confuses people.
Yeah, but that is something that we need to remember. It's not just, I made $3 a mile. Well, you could make $3 a mile and still lose your butt.
Well, and that's what I mean about the length of haul is one of the things we really need to focus on when we talk about that. There's a time value to all of this. Our time is valuable. We only have so much time. And, looking at it that way can be really helpful if you can get people to that level. Here's the thing you've got to remember. My very first seminar in 1999, told the story many times. One of the things I asked people in the room, and I was shocked, absolutely shocked by this the first time I asked the question. And I was so shocked by it, I changed my whole seminar that day and kind of spent some time focusing on this so I could understand it. I have a room full of owner-operators who are here to learn how to do business better. That was the whole point of the seminar. The program was called Partners in Business. And I asked everybody, how many of you here right now could show me a profit and loss statement or some sort of financial report on where you are up until the last couple of months at least? Maybe you're not totally up to date, and almost nobody raised their hand. And I understand crowds and, people are shy sometimes. And I said, look, I didn't just ask that just to fill up time. I really want to know, because it's going to change what I'm going to talk about, how many of you know your numbers? How many of you could tell me what you spent on fuel last month? And what is that per mile? And less than 5% of the room, no matter how hard I pushed them. less than 5% of the room knew those numbers. And I thought, here was my first thought, what an opportunity. This is big. If I can teach these people how to understand their numbers, it changes everything. I was so excited. I started writing software because at the time I was using spreadsheets for all this stuff. And spreadsheets are horribly inefficient. That's all I'm going to, they take forever to program. You can make mistakes on them really easy if you're not careful. You're constantly updating them and changing them. So I looked at what I was doing with these spreadsheets and thought this is way too complicated. So that's where profit gauges came from. I took all of my spreadsheets and started creating profit gauges. The crazy thing today is, in all of the audiences I've been in front of, I ask this question almost every time I'm standing on a stage. I have never, ever had more than a 10% response, even after all these years.
Yeah.
Hey, Cole, I hate to do this.
Yeah, and I think
I just looked at the clock. I was totally not paying attention today. I have 10 minutes and 5 calls. So we're going to make these really quick. Jeremy, what do you got?
Oh, man. Well, I better get serious then. I was going to investment question, and it's, if you were still investing in the stock market and you had an IRA, you know, that you know, I mean, last week it was like $500 for the S&P 500.
Okay.
You know, we're doing about 300 to 400 a week, you know, and each and then I have so in that I mean, it's like, is that why? Okay, I also had when we first started, we had opened up a Russell and an International, you know, and I stopped doing it and I was doing all S&P because I have the 401k through my job that has that stuff.
Exactly. Okay.
You know, it has. Okay, but man, if I being 500 a share last year, I was like, it was so tempting to just go ahead and buy the Russell, which is like 81, you know, and
wait a minute. Don't worry about the per share price. It's almost meaningless.
Oh, it is?
Well, yeah. Well, if that's your case, let's just take it to an extreme. Why aren't you just investing in penny stocks then? They're really cheap.
Right, because the growth, the growth.
Why would somebody ever buy shares of? I'm drawing a blank here. Warren Buffett's fund. Why would anybody ever buy shares of it? It was a couple of $100,000 for a share at one point, I think, or some number that I can't even remember. It was so damn big. So the share
or whatever that is,
the share price itself is kind of meaningless.
Okay. Okay, because it's the potential for growth or the history of growth.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't care if the S&P 500 cost me $1,000 a share to buy. If it's going up 10% a year, which it has for years and years and years and years, 10%'s 10%.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Hey, and why would Biden touch on politics? Why would Biden veto a bill that they passed through that says you have to show ID to vote? Why would he vote?
Well, there's only one obvious answer.
Veto that.
Because all the 20 million people that he just allowed to come into our country illegally, he's hoping for their vote somehow.
And why would the American people be okay with that?
I don't know, because the American people are brain dead sheep these days is about the only answer I have. Let me take it back to my open.
That's crazy.
The American people have been subverted with the food supply where their brains aren't functioning properly, and then they're brainwashed by the mainstream media. So, yeah, between the poor diet where people can't even think right anymore, and they spend all day staring at social media and mainstream media, they're That kind of sums it up. Let's go to Minnesota. Brad, welcome.
Good morning, Kevin.
What's on your mind
So I
today?
have a 27-year-old thermostats. I'm running 190s right now in the Caterpillar I got, but I'm having issues with it getting warm, and I know they're about 4 years old. Would a cooler one, it would help, but will it hurt my fuel economy?
Not enough to worry about it. We're more, if you are constantly running hot, which we had a call about this the other day on a cat with 190 thermostats, and Eric explained how it takes so many degrees before they are fully open, and now we're up running in those 210 plus ranges before it's really starting to cool. And on a hot day and a heavy load in a big hill, we're pushing them to the point where you got to back out of them. At that point, you are risking cracking a head too often. There's too many downsides to trying to manage that much heat. You're better off throwing some new thermostats in there, maybe 180s, and allowing that cooling to start happening sooner. At most, we pick up 1% in fuel economy every 10 degrees hotter we run the engine. And when you're pushing that limit to where the shutdowns are starting to happen, it's just not worth that 1%.
No, it's not, because I'm constantly watching the temp gauge, and
you know,
it climbs even just accelerating.
We experimented with Evans coolant way back when. We converted a lot of trucks to Evans coolant, which can handle more heat than traditional coolant. Traditional coolant is ethylene glycol. Evans coolant was propylene glycol. You can't have any water anywhere near propylene glycol in the engine because it doesn't have any of the anti-rust additives in there that we need. So we had problems with people allowing water in the engine and causing problems. We had people mixing coolants. That's an absolute no-go. You could wipe out engines. Evans coolant allowed us to run these engines, and we had to go into the ECM and turn off the babysitters because we were running these things up in the 225 range. And we were absolutely getting better fuel economy. We documented it. We did that for about 2 years and finally had to look at it and say, you know what, we got this one wrong. A couple of cracked heads, a couple engine blocks with rust, and we said, this is just not, it works. We've proven it works. It's just not practical. So you're kind of at that same point right now with this truck. You're at a place where the downsides of running those higher temperatures are much bigger than the little bit of fuel savings we're going to get. So let's do whatever we have to do to cool that thing down.
Got it. I'll let you on to the next question.
All right. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Ohio. Fred, good morning.
Hey, Kevin. All right, 2 quick points, and then what I called for. All right, so if you want real-time accounting at the beginning of the month, just add your receivables in there, and then you have to hope and pray that those receivables are accurate. They'll pay you.
You just described accrual accounting.
Right, exactly.
Right.
But I mean, so I mean, we can people who like to split the hairs.
Absolutely.
Is just they drive themselves crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. I just kind of run and
exactly. It evens out. Again, if we go back to the fact that 90% of the owner operators aren't doing any accounting whatsoever. Hell, if I could get them to write their numbers on a napkin with crayons, it would be an improvement.
Well, I don't pull for under $5 a mile.
Yeah, well, then you don't need to track your numbers. You're fine.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm fine. Yes, exactly. That $3 a mile is antiquated.
That's right.
So anyway, second, Pfizer is exploring and investing in a 1 pill a day Ozempic type drug. It's $90 billion of market share. $90 billion.
This is the next big health crisis that we are staring down the barrel of right now. Not only Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, all of the pharmaceutical companies are scrambling to come up with new drugs that, based on hormones, that help people lose weight. It is a disaster.
Right. And the thing I called for is going to take more than 5 minutes, but
That's all right. Go ahead.
The Chevron doctrine that the Supreme Court just overturned. I believe in our industry, we can utilize this ruling to push back on the EPA mandates on the emission systems.
Yep, absolutely.
So this is something that we can, if we don't need anyone to go to Congress. We need lawfare. We need an attorney and people behind him to pick this up. We can overturn all the egregious EPA rules for all these emission systems and throw them out.
So here's the big question here. To me, I've said this before. I'm going to continue to say it until I'm proven wrong. And we're going to get an attorney on here. I'm just trying to work out the schedule now because I really do want to take a vacation. But if I keep scheduling guests, then I can't take vacation. So I got to get him in the schedule somewhere because this is important. I absolutely believe that for you and I can't think of anything political that is this or has the potential to be this big. I think I need to say it like that. This could change everything we know about our economy, about politics. I don't know if I can state how big it really is, or maybe I'm just wrong about that.
I don't think you are. I don't think you're overstating that at all.
Will this turn out to really be something, or is it just a big nothing burger? On the surface, it looks huge. Like we could change so many things that are just wrong. Sure, the EPA, definitely a problem. The FMCSA, a horrible problem. We could go on and on about the stuff in trucking. As important as trucking is, it pales into comparison to how we could change health.
Yes.
The USDA, the FDA, come on. You could hire a team of 100 lawyers and never run out of work on this stuff.
Well, that's the thing. I believe they're putting together teams right now to push back on the government overreach. This is the whole mantra that I've said in the past, where the Congress has absconded their authority to the regulatory agencies, and this doctrine, but when it was in place, they used to use the regulatory agencies as the quote unquote experts in their field, in their regulatory capacity, as rule of law, or they upheld the rulings. Now it brings it back to Congress, where they have to write either a more definitive law where they can regulate off of, or leave it vague and then have all these court challenges.
And then, and here's the other thing. Before, these decisions were left up to unelected bureaucrats that we had no control over, and they got the final say in all of this stuff. Now it's got to go back to Congress and the judiciary. So now we actually have some checks and balances in this system the way it's supposed to be. That's why this, to me, like, the more I think about this, my head wants to explode.
That Michigan load. Sorry, I'm just checking it. Oh, okay. Yeah, River Rouge. That's the one. All right. Yeah.
Get this guy weighed out. Get him out of here. I'll have to pull on the scale.
All right. Are you going to load me on the scale like they did to the other one? Okay, so you made it back on?
Oh, yeah, that'd probably be easy.
All right. All right, cool. All right, just let me know when you need me. All right.
After all he's gone, I'll have to pull on the scale.
All right. Here's the wash ticket if you need it. You going to take lunch? All right, take lunch. Enjoy. All right. I'm fat. I already ate lunch. So there's a strapping chart there, too. All right, you got it. Sorry, Kevin.
No, this is real world trucking. Nothing wrong with that.
Yes. I mean, this is a real win for the American people.
It absolutely is. If it comes true, that's still what I'm worried about. That somehow that this isn't going to change anything, because we've been through things before. But to me, this is big. Hey, Fred, You keep ghosting me, and now you call when I have no time left. So we got to fix that. It's a start. It's a start. We got you on the air again, but
I'll call Monday. I'll call Monday before you start. How's that?
perfect. Talk to you then. Thanks for the call. I am going to bring it. Oh, Mike and Kevin Beckett. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
See, I had something that I thought was going to be fun. I had one call left. I don't know what I was thinking. There was 10 minutes left, and I looked down at the board. I had 7 calls. I'm like, oh, boy, I got to get moving here. So I was down to my last call, which was an oil sample, and I was going to ask you two to help me with it.
Oh, good.
I know, but they hung up.
Oh, I see. The one that was in the waiting room.
They were in the waiting room, and we were just about to go to them. It was my last call before I had to turn things over to you guys, and I thought, we'll make this fun. I'll let you guys do the oil sample, and then I'll take the first.
I'd be good at that.
For some reason, I think you would be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it would have been a great time.
It would have been.
Whatever the answer was.
It would have been. Yeah. And we don't give any guarantees with our answers anyway. All we guarantee is that we'll give you an answer.
Yes.
Right.
We always will do that.
If you need a better answer, pay for it.
Exactly. And if you want an even better answer, you're going to have to pay more.
Right. Pay. We got payment, by the way. We got paid for our on-air and over-the-phone answers.
Awesome.
I'm looking at the payment on the desk right now. It's pickles, hats, and pens, and some, I don't think they're really negotiable money from a fellow named Joe Decker up in Minnesota.
Well, I'm gonna say that the listeners like me better. They send you pickles, they send me books.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
I get lots of books.
I'm not arguing about the pickles.
Yeah. No, I like pickles too, but I get lots of books.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's new and exciting with you guys this week?
Oh, I just got back from Canada.
Right.
Had to go up and do a day's work with a sand and gravel operation.
Right. And
they let me back into the United States, which was kind of interesting.
That's probably a mistake.
You know, it's kind of funny that you mentioned this. I was planning a trip up to Canada this summer at some point, quick one, because I'm not that far away. It's pretty easy for me to get up there. And you know why I'm not going now?
No, why?
They're doing some goofy thing with pets. Like you can get and it's not Canada. I'm not blaming it on them. It's the U.S. I can get into Canada just fine. I might not be able to get back with my pet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not risking that one.
Hey, you remember the dog that broke my leg? If I send him out to you, could you take him to Canada?
All right. Well, anything new and exciting in the world of tires these days?
Same old, round, black, dirty, and wears funny.
Got it.
Most of the story. I keep hearing people saying that they've got some new problem, but it always turns out to be an old problem.
Yep.
It just looks like a new problem.
Right. Lately. I mean, there will be new problems. But...
Well, the people who think it's a new problem are people who apparently just got into the industry and didn't see it 10 years ago.
or 30 years ago.
Or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, I will let you two get on with what you do, and I'll go do something else.
Taking a nap?
That'll work.
All right. Have a great time. Thanks for the show.
All right. Take care.
You have a good day, buddy. Right.
All right. So this is the